But and I feel like those raw ingredients, like we're calling them raw ingredients, but it takes a lot to make that. You know what I mean? Like that's a whole other operation, is like sourcing ketamine and MDMA and like synthesizing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, they literally have entire labs for this. Like truly, like they have chemists, they have labs, they have chefs, and that's why it is like almost like an art form. This is modern day Hippie. We are your homies who've done nearly every drug under the sun. Over 600 psychedelic trips and nearly every kind of bender you can possibly imagine have armed us with a universe of knowledge. I'm Yuki, and with my co-host Reggie, we talk about how we do drugs in a responsible, safe, and fun way to improve our lives. Before we dive in, and so we don't get sued, a quick legal disclaimer.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Our goal is to educate and inform others about the realities of substance use in an engaging and entertaining format. We share these experiences so you can learn from them without trying them yourself. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to attempt to recreate anything found in this episode or in any of our other content. We are not confessing to any acts stated in this podcast. The content in this episode should not be treated as factual or real in any way.
With that, we welcome you through our portal and hope you enjoy the show. All right.
What's up, hippies? Hope you're having a vibey day today. I'm Reggie, joined here by my co-host Yuki. Yuki, what's been going on, man?
Well, we're coming off of Halloween not too long ago as of recording this, and as per usual, got up to some usual Halloween bullshit. Luckily, I'm not going to that Halloween party anymore that I took you to a couple of years ago. That one has bitten the dust this year, but got to go to a really sick like Halloween / Burning Man music festival in New York. And dude, partying is just different in New York, man. Like they go so fucking late. It's just insane. Like the main event went until 5 a.m. And then the after party for this event, the official after party, was basically in the same venue, just like a smaller portion of it because it was this giant like warehouse complex. But the after party went until 2 p.m., dude. And literally at like 9 or 10 a.m., the organizers got like catering of like breakfast burritos and wings. And so everyone's just on drugs, like music's still pumping and we're eating our like catered breakfast burritos. Although I had no appetite. None of my friends had appetite. We just happened to be setting.
What time was it? Like, it was like 2 p.m.'s like, that's lunchtime at least, bro. Like,
yeah. I mean, they serve breakfast and they had like tea and coffee and stuff. And I think it's just New York vibes. And dude, I'm just grateful that I don't live there anymore. Because if I did, I know I would get like sucked into doing that every weekend. And I would just not be able to like do that and have a decent life by going out to that extent every weekend. And even the fact that like a headlining DJ starts at like 2 a.m. is just ridiculous. Like, come on, man. I want to party. I want to go have a good time, but I also want to have a life on the weekends and not spend my entire weekdays like recovering, you know? Try to be a productive individual. And I got other shit I care about too.
Yeah, dude, that's wild, dude. Holy shit. People would be doing that every weekend. Like partying until 2 p.m. the next day. That's insane.
I think there are very few people who can sustain that every weekend. But if you want to do that every weekend, there's absolutely the opportunities to do so. And I have friends who like will get dragged out pretty often. And because the nightlife is so late in New York, literally the rule is that like you're not safe on saying no to going out until like 1 or 2 a.m. Like it can be 1 a.m. and your friends can be like, we're coming over to you and we're going to make you come out with us. And like it happens. And that's New York. And for better or worse, like that's the lay of the land there.
Dude, I believe it. What's the drug culture over there if people are always staying up too late? Like, is it like a lot of coke or something?
Yeah, it's definitely a shit ton of coke. And especially because just New York going out and party culture is very alcohol centric. So like a shit ton of coke, and actually like some of my heaviest coke days and I would say my second heaviest coke using era was when I was living in New York. Otherwise, like in the rave scene, ketamine's like super big as well, but definitely more specific to raving. And I mean, it's a big city. You'll find fucking anything. I would say like Molly and rolling is pretty common as well. So yeah, man.
Damn, that's lit, dude.
Yeah, but wanted to dive in for our main topic today. This is a pretty fun one, and I'd say pretty highly requested from our listeners. And namely, today I'm going to be walking through how to design your own batch of Tusi. And what's cool about this is every batch of Tusi can be unique. It can have different ingredients, can have different ratios, and ultimately lead to different experiences. And it's pretty cool to like be able to put your name and just your like personal effort behind like designing a drug like this, especially that's so in vogue with the times. I'm very fortunate to have had this experience. It's definitely not accessible to everyone in all geographies. But if you were to get the opportunity to do so, gonna walk through how you would hypothetically go about this. And we're not gonna talk like in depth, like chemistry or shit like that. It's gonna be pretty high level, like what you would have to do and people you'd have to know, etc., to make it happen. But all in all, I thought this would be kind of a fun like story to tell and a way to get you guys thinking about if you were to design your own batch, what would you put in it? And just know that like as modern day hippies, we are very much about intentional and safe drug use. And one layer beyond being just a consumer of these substances is how can you participate in, maybe it's not even making your own Tusi batch, but it's mixing them in the right ways to create like novel experiences for yourself and your friends. And I know I have honestly felt blessed to be able to bring these drug related experiences, whether it's through my Tusi batch, whether it's through recommending different mixtures of drugs to my friends who never tried these things before. And they're just like, Yuki, like you literally like blew my mind. Like you're changing my life through this. And special thing to be able to do. And I hope more of you guys get to do that because honestly, it's fucking awesome.
It is fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah.
It's those combinations like, and I think there's a lot of like caution that you have to take when you're mixing things like that, but that's why we're talking about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I will very much go through a yes and no list on what you would put in your Tusi. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. So step number 1 is you need to find a proper Tusi chef. And yes, they're called chefs. This is like a proper, honestly, like art form almost, that started in Colombia with Tusi ranging out of there. And then, spreading throughout South America and Central America. And like, for damn certain, most of us do not know a Tusi chef. Like that is for sure. And I didn't for a very, very long time. I got pretty lucky in that I happened to meet one through a friend of mine, like, kind of came to me on a silver platter. But if I didn't know this person and I wanted to design my own custom batch, what I would do is I would start having conversations with my local dealers. And the thing to know is like, dude, like, when you're buying drugs from your dealer, I mean, I used to just like think of it as a purely transactional thing. Like, hey, I'm here for 2 minutes. Like, give me my stuff. Here's your money. End of story. That's it. As I got like more mature in my drug buying journey, definitely just started just chatting more with the dealers, like when I was picking stuff up, partially to like just get to know them and see what they're up to, learn more about their businesses. Because honestly, I'm curious about it for myself and this podcast. But also because I'm genuinely curious about like where they source their substances, like what their approach is to it. And I found like, obviously there's different levels of dealers, like small time people who just sell small amounts, like don't really give a shit where it's coming from, up to I've met some really big dealers in my area and people who like take this shit really seriously. Like they really go the extra mile to like source it from a good spot. They test everything and they run like massive operations and like pretty tight ships. And it's especially those bigger ones where it's like, if you're buying from a smaller dealer, dude, 9 times out of 10, like they have a bigger guy in your area who they're getting stuff from. And if you start asking for like specific enough substances, like if you ask for 2C or 2CB or like DMT cards or things like that are like more than your just run of the mill, like weed, coke, K, whatever, or even asking for like SK, R-ketamine, like that might, it's kind of like low key networking your way up to a dealer. And once you get to a sufficient size, they absolutely know what Tusi is. And odds are that if they're not already selling it, they either know how to make it, at least theoretically, or they know someone in their network who is making it or knows how to make it. So that can be a way to kind of like tread your own path to finding that chef. And I'm telling you, these big dealers, like they know how to make Tusi, like maybe to like a 6 out of 10. Potentially. Beyond that, like I really think you need someone who knows their shit, who's like learned it from someone like in Central South America. But even like if it's 6 out of 10, if you get like the right ratios and the right ingredients that you like, then it can still be a very solid experience. So yeah, Reggie, any questions, any thoughts on that as the
Dude, that's like here? I didn't even think of that step, but that's so important. That's like legit where to start with this if you want to like make your own shit. Like, I guess my question is, like, why can't you just like source each of the drugs individually and then put them into a like mixture and then like color it pink? Like, does that count? I don't know.
Yeah. So the tricky part is it's not just a matter of getting these different powders, stirring them with a spoon, and then just throwing in some food dye. Like it does actually require like a kitchen. It requires some heat and the way they meld these together. Like that stuff that's like beyond me. Right. And I don't know, like I can't give you a recipe of like, turn on the oven to 350 degrees, mix your stuff together, put it in I don't have that level of context. And frankly, I don't even think I want to be honest. Like I'd rather outsource this to somebody else who knows what they're doing. And frankly, I might like talk to my guy and be like, hey, dude, I'm straight up just curious, like at a high level, like what is this process? And if I do that, I will absolutely report back here. But it's really, it's not just like mixing two baggies together and just getting that. Tusi, like good Tusi has a very specific texture where you'll notice the powder is a lot fluffier than ketamine, where it comes in crystals that are crushed up. And even when you crush up the crystals, right, they go into grains, but it packs very densely. And like if you pour out ketamine, it pours out really cleanly. Like it doesn't like really stick to bags or anything.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot more like the texture of like grainy sand, versus Coke can be a little bit softer. And I believe good Coke usually is. I think it's supposed to be like if you rub good Coke between your fingers,
that's my experience.
It's supposed to dissolve a little bit, or get like a little bit like slimy almost. And then Tusi is super fluffy. Like for example, like Tusi, whenever I snort it out of my Snow-Go, which I'm big fans of here, as you know, it actually is significantly harder to snort through the Snow-Go than something like ketamine, because the granules of the powder aren't like very discrete. Like they stick together, they kind of clump. It's almost like, it's like think of a powder, but like it acts a little bit like cotton candy almost. And so it has a little bit more like that adhesive property where it like sticks to itself, and makes it, like Tusi can like stick to the sides of bags a lot more frequently.
Yeah, it's a little harder to like line up and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so the way you get that texture is it's definitely more than just like mixing powders. And we'll talk about it. Like there's other substances that go into it that are usually not powders either.
Damn, dude. First myth busted, dude. Common misconception. It's not just a mixture of powders. There's actually other shit that goes into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Cause I just thought you could just like mix a few powders together, maybe like add a drop of acid or something and then call it Tusi, but it makes sense that there's more to it.
Yeah, exactly. Now that brings us to step 2. So let's say you found a guy who can put it together for you. Step 2 is knowing the ingredients that commonly go into Tusi and knowing how to assess the quality of the ingredients. So the most common ingredients found in Tusi traditionally are primarily MDMA and ketamine, and then small amounts of LSD. In my experience, the most common mixture, and I think what makes things so fun. I would say base, like if you're trying to keep things really simple, you could do just a mixture of MDMA and ketamine, but the LSD in there, I find it really elevates the experience. Now, getting back to the mechanics of like the cooking and the process of putting these together, right? So let's say like you could have MDMA in powdered form, just super crushed up crystals, things like that. And then your powdered ketamine. But when you're adding in LSD, like you want to be using actually like liquid LSD, which when you say LSD, usually, it's in water paper. So it's just the paper has absorbed that liquid, but you would want, like a vial of LSD with a few drops that you would put into this batch of Tusi. Now, in terms of the quality of the ingredients themselves, so the best Tusi often and almost always comes from the best ingredients. And the way you get that is it's actually not even made from powdered MDMA or powdered ketamine. It actually comes in liquid forms for both of those components. And you mix those together. And again, this is beyond what I know, but you like cook them in such a way that they then form into a powder. And so you basically throw in the liquid LSD into that. And so the highest quality stuff comes from liquid MDMA and liquid ketamine. Now, those raw ingredients are like, I think insanely hard to get. And if you're based in the US, like good luck getting stuff that's that quality. Your second best bet is just looking for like really high quality ketamine and MDMA. And this is something where it's like, you can kind of suss out by talking to the chef, like see what relationships they have and who are their suppliers who give them these raw ingredients. Generally, if it's someone who's outside of the US, that's probably a better bet because like these massive operations, the cartels who are doing it in Colombia and Mexico, like they get, if they want to, they can get really good quality raw ingredients in these like liquid forms of these drugs and then make those into good Tusi. Granted that they absolutely do not do that for every batch of Tusi. Like there are very much different tiers of drugs the cartels sell. Like for example, if you're ever in a club in Mexico, pretty much every cartel or every club and it has like the drug rights to a specific club and is matched to a cartel. And if they ever catch you doing your drugs there, they will threaten your life. They'll make you flush your drugs. They'll make you buy their drugs. And the shit that you get from those people, like the on the ground people there, that's not going to be good quality. Not good quality Coke, Tusi, nothing. You need to go kind of more upstream to get like really quality shit. And then,
Damn, that makes a lot of sense, honestly. And I feel like those raw ingredients, like we're calling them raw ingredients, but it takes a lot to make that shit. You know what I mean? Like that's a whole other operation, is like sourcing ketamine and MDMA and like synthesizing.
oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, they literally have entire labs for this shit. Like truly, like they have chemists, they have labs, they have chefs, and that's why it is like almost like an art form. Now, outside of those main ingredients of ketamine, MDMA, and LSD, I personally would not recommend putting anything else in your Tusi. Now, I will say I have found and tested Tusi batches that have all manner of other stuff in it, whether it's cocaine, various amphetamines, random shit. Like that to me is like not good Tusi. That is not the mark of positive Tusi. And if your chef wants to put that stuff in or recommends putting that in, just say no, be like, I'd really prefer not to. Let's stick to the core ingredients. The one exception I had to this with my batch was my chef, the guy he learned from, his specialty was putting a bit of caffeine in the batch as well. And the reason for this is all the drugs that you snort through the Tusi, you don't get an immediate like kick from. Like cocaine, for example, as soon as you snort it, like you get like a really nice rush. Whereas all the ones in Tusi, it takes a little bit for them to hit. But the reason he puts the caffeine in is because the caffeine does give you an immediate little kick as you snort it. And it kind of like starts off that experience then as your ketamine and then your MDMA kind of start like settling in. And
dude, that really is like an art form, man. Like you're really just designing the experience. You're designing the come up. You're designing like how long it's going to last based on what you put in it. It's pretty dope. Caffeine, I like that. That's a cool little hack. What do you think of like cocoa powder? You think that would work too?
I like cacao.
Yeah.
I will say the caffeine, I have no idea what form they get it in. And I know when I tried snorting cacao powder once because it came with my Snow-Go and it was absolutely awful. Like I hated it. Just,
oh really?
the texture is super light and it's just like gets in your nose. Like it's not pleasant. And that might be hard to like mix and cook because obviously like chocolate melts very easily. And I think it's also pretty easy to burn. And I don't know if that would involve Tusi, but who knows? Maybe you're onto something.
Who knows, man?
And now the third, and I would say final main step is figuring out the ratios that you want in your Tusi. This is something where ideally you're working with a chef where they can make small enough batches for you to get to in the batch. You know, it gives us like the faintest of like LSD visuals, but you're definitely not like, I feel like you're tripping a lot. You could customize too. Like I've actually had friends who are like, hey, could we customize a batch that's like even heavier on the trippiness? That like you could also customize. So think about it as like your three levers are the DMA and the ketamine, and then how those two interact together, and the LSD as its own piece of like how trippy do you want it to be and how long do you want that trippiness effect to last in like a obvious.
Dude, so walk me through the timeline on that. I guess like, does adding more LSD make the whole thing last longer or feel like it lasts longer? Or is it just like because LSD lasts a while. I'm assuming when you snort it, like in the form of 2C, that it's not lasting like 8 hours, right? Like
no, and it's such a small quantity that you don't feel it to that extent. But I will say like the afterglow that I get with 2C like really lasts a while. And I would say there's a pretty long gap between when I feel like, let's say I do a bump of 2C. I would say within an hour and a half, I feel like good, pretty normal, operational. Like I could do any normal task. Like I could probably work, like I can drive if I need to. That's chill. Then the timeline from then to when I feel like I can actually go to sleep, get some rest is pretty long. And so I think that's like the very tail end of the LSD where it's very light. And honestly, the reason I like it so much is because it does give you that like extended afterglow effect, which I enjoy personally. It's like not the main intention of the substance, but how you feel afterwards. And it gives me like time and space, like process maybe some of the thoughts or the conversations I had while I was in like the main part of this experience.
Damn, I wonder if you could make it with like 4-ACO DMT instead of LSD. Like, cause would that kind of shorten the timeline?
Dude, maybe. Honestly, these are great.
Dude, ask your chef.
I'll ask.
Let me know what they say.
I will report back.
I have some liquid 4-ACO, but
no way.
I don't know if it's the right form, I guess.
I'll let you know. Maybe we can try to whip something up.
Cool.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Learned something, at least one new thing. I just thought anything was particularly interesting or you have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. But otherwise, that's today's pod.
You've been listening to Modern Day Hippie. As you exit the portal, we have just one small ask of you. If you learned something new today, had a laugh, or resurfaced a drug story of your own, we want to hear about it. Drop us a comment on YouTube and show us some love on your favorite podcasting platforms. Internet algorithms really dog on us because of the topics that we discuss, so your support goes even further here than you might think. We'll catch you next week.